Maybe that Thomas Tuchel, the Bayern manager, is looking over his shoulder at the moment because in the last 24 hours his job as the Bayern manager has been linked to Hansi Flick and indeed to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I thought we would test the strength.
That's an odd one, isn't it?
The strength of those rumours, amongst other things in the world of German football. Seb Stafford-Bloor joins us, German football expert for The Athletic. Hi, Seb.
Hi, guys. How you doing?
Yeah, good,
thank you. I kind of got Hansi Flick. I was a bit sort of blindsided by Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. Where's this come from and what is the likelihood of it?
Well, in order, not sure where it's come from. It's very much a left field one. I think the likelihood is pretty slim. So Bayern's position really is they would very much like Thomas Tuchel to remain in situ for the rest of the season. As everyone remembers, the dismissal of Julian Nagelsmann was pretty unflattering for everybody involved. He was off on a family skiing holiday, found out through the media. It's not really the way the Bayern like to do business. And also, amongst their last, say, probably 6 permanent managers since Pep Guardiola left the club, nobody's lasted more than 2 years. A couple have gone mid-season. It's not very ordered, is it? So they would like, if possible, Tuchel to get through that second leg against Lazio, see out the season, and then maybe think again in a more kind of clear-minded Bavarian kind of way. So I don't think we will be seeing Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in Germany or in Munich immediately. Funny one, isn't it?
I mean, you do sense that. I mean, that is very, they had a lot of chances against Lazio. Musiala and Kane especially had 2 good chances. And you would expect them to get the job done 1-0 down at half-time back at their place. But if they don't, and they go out of the Champions League, it's very hard to see him surviving, isn't it, to the end of the season?
It sure is. There are some really unflattering statistics beneath the surface too. So the Leverkusen Lazio defeats were the first time in 4 years, I think, that Bayern have lost back-to-back games. Is also they went 180 minutes without registering a shot on target, which, when you think about kind of the players available, you've mentioned some of them, like Musiala, Müller, Kane, like Sané, like Kimmich, Goretzka. It's kind of unthinkable, isn't it? And of course, it's difficult for Thomas Tuchel in the sense that you don't want to be the guy in possession of the team when its historic run in the Bundesliga comes to an end.
Yeah.
At the same time, they're playing a brand of individual-led football, which kind of depends on individual players obviously expressing themselves within the starting 11, and the individual morale and collective morale doesn't seem all that good. And when they lost to Leverkusen, everyone saw Thomas Müller's very animated post-game interview in which he kind of, amongst other things, said, we're not really enjoying our football. Like, everything in training is pretty good, and then when we come to the games, everyone, I'm paraphrasing, seems inhibited. And that doesn't really tally with what Tuchel's approach is, which is you need your star players to perform, and not happening. So it's not a terribly good look all round.
No, absolutely not. No. Well, we will and say Solskjaer, you think does seem very unlikely. What is the word in Germany? What are they saying about this?
He's not going to have the classic managerial career of Mould at Cardiff, Mould at Man U, Bayern Munich.
No, it's not.
And no other clubs.
Normally the CV, is it?
The path of legends. No, it's not. It's no disrespect to any of those clubs.
No, of course.
No, I think the Solskjaer thing represents something interesting, which is that, like, as a temporary appointment, I suppose what you want, if your overall plan is to eventually look at, I think, noises about Xabi Alonso, quite understandably, coming out of the club. Yes, he's been connected with Liverpool, but he obviously played with distinction for Bayern Munich. He's very popular there. His standing in German football, in European football, never been higher for very good reason. But Solskjaer's are kind of like, well, if you insert someone like that on an interim basis, they know their place, right? They're not really a threat to the long-term planning. But yeah, Alonso, beyond that, I mean, obviously Hansi Flick has, Flick's an interesting one because obviously he's associated with that tremendously decadent period at Bayern when they last won the Champions League. And yet, his standing has been damaged by, I don't think it's unfair to say, a catastrophic run with the German national team, which ended actually in parody. They did one of those Amazon documentaries following the German side at the Qatar World Cup, which I don't know if listeners saw, but didn't paint a particularly flattering picture of Flick's man management style or qualities. And I don't know, it's an old cliche about never going back, but I think that's kind of 2+2 thinking. So he's associated with the handling of a younger group of players who have since been there for 3 or 4 years since, and have won a lot. And this is supposed to be one of the problems at Bayern, is that you've got this core of very influential senior guys who have perhaps become a little bit jaded with the demands within the Bundesliga, and who have maybe become a bit too powerful within the dressing room. The old anonymous dressing room source has been pretty vocal in the German media for the last 3 or 4 years, and so plugging Flick back in, I don't see it, and I don't see an obvious next step for Bayern, and this is part of the problem.
Poor old Harry Kane signing at the wrong time.
Yeah.
Dortmund,
It's got a sort of Man United vibes when Sir Alex left, isn't it? It's got a sort of finding a way forward, a successful way forward.
Dortmund in action tonight. They go to PSV, are flying in the Dutch league. We saw Newcastle fans at here. They're not a bad side. So what are your expectations for them over 2 legs?
I expect the game to be great. So the subplot here is Peter Bosz, who was dismissed by Borussia Dortmund in 2017, halfway through his first season at the club. As you mentioned, he's built this really exciting PSV who, yes, they're cruising to the Dutch title, but they're also playing this wonderfully flamboyant attacking football. Versus a Dortmund side who, last weekend they had a pretty disjointed and disappointing draw with Wolfsburg, who are not, a form team in Germany. And yet they're unbeaten since December, and they're not a fluid Dortmund team. They're not a kind of they're not one of those high octane Jurgen Klopp sides, or even a Thomas Tuchel side from back in the day. They're very businesslike. They're a little bit unpredictable. I don't think they inspire a lot of faith. So I kind of fancy PSV. I think the first leg in particular will be a cracking watch, just because of PSV know one way, and that is to go forward. And they've got some lovely, lovely young attacking footballers there who really are worth everybody's time this evening if they get the chance to watch.
And finally, sad news today about Andreas Brehme, the former Germany fullback, a man who scored that winning penalty in the 1990 World Cup final against Argentina. No age at all, 63. Had a great career, not just in Germany, but in Italy as well at Inter.
Yeah, terribly sad. He was very young, Andy Brehme. He was Italian Footballer of the Year in 1989, ahead of Maradona, which really does say something. I think there's been a lot of very poignant words today in Germany, of course, but he also, I think the thing I love about him most, the anecdote from his career, is obviously English fans will remember his left foot being the kind of architect of the first goal that deflected off Paul Parker, obviously over Peter Shilton. But then 85th minute of a World Cup final, and after penalties given, and Rudi Völler doesn't want to take it, Lothar Matthäus doesn't really fancy it, Andy Brehme steps up, and in his words, he said that his left foot was the most powerful, his right was the most accurate, so he switched his foot. Said, I'll take this right-footed. 85th minute of a World Cup final. Fancy that. That's amazing. Incredible test of nerve. And you mentioned he's he won wherever he went. There's a very famous image actually of he was relegated with Kaiserslautern in 1996, and after full time and after their relegation was confirmed, he was being consoled by Rudi Völler after the game, and he was in tears. And I think a lot of fans gravitated towards him in Germany because it showed him as as a caring footballer, someone to whom it meant an awful lot. Stayed at the club in the Zweite Bundesliga, came up next season, won the championship, and I think that was his last season as a player. And he's being fondly remembered by a lot of his former teammates today, and very, very sad, and no age at all, like you say, guys.
Seb, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Seb Stafford-Bloor there, German football expert for The Athletic. We'll keep you in touch with those games in the Champions League this evening.
Paul Hawksbee and Andy Jacobs, Monday to Friday afternoons 1 till 4 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.